Well, hello everyone, my name is Swiggo and welcome back to yet another video. Today I have something a little bit more casual for you guys. Today I'm going to be beating Pokemon Emerald as a farmer. This challenge got suggested by Jordan Ruan, so thank you so much, and like always people, leave your suggestions in the comments down below. Of course, there are a lot of Pokemon that are used on farms, but there are some very obvious ones that I will be using today. These include Torchic as a chicken, of course, Miltank as a cow, Tauros as a bull, Grumpig as a pig, Flaffy as a sheep, and Murkrow as a crow. I know I could have gone for Cacturne as a scarecrow, and I did catch him, but I didn't really use him. And may I remind you to click that subscribe button, because apparently only 11% of people is subscribed, and don't forget to hit that bell to be up to date with my videos. And now let's get into the rules. The rules are pretty simple. I can only use the farm Pokemon in battle, HM Pokemon will be allowed, and I won't be able to use any items in battle. With that being said, let's get right into it. We have to give ourselves a farmer name, of course, and I went with Randy because that's just the best farmer name ever, isn't it? It is then time to pick my starter, and I go with Torchic, beat up the Zigzagoon, and I name it Pollo because Pollo is apparently Spanish for chicken. After that, it's time to beat up May and her lovely Mudkip. Also, did you know that kip means chicken in Dutch? Ha, fun fact right there. Anyway, because we're already 2 levels above the Mudkip, we can easily beat it up with a few scratches. Also, I won't be evolving my Torchic because Torchic is just more of a chicken than Combuskin and Blaziken. We help Wally to catch his first route. And then we head straight to Roxanne's gym, and because we can't evolve our Torchic, this is going to be a hard one. Since we only learn moves that are not very effective on our Pokemon, we don't really do that much damage, and all of our moves are super effective against stuff, so Rock Tomb and Rock Throws hit really hard. Also, if I have to spawn in a Pokemon, I first have to get the gym badge and then I can spawn it in. The only Pokemon that I can really catch normally is Spoink and Cacturne, so the rest will be spawned in after I get a gym badge. Anyway, I tried this gym at various levels, even up to level 24 and 25, and eventually, after hitting level 25, I did manage to get a strategy to beat it. Since my Torchic now has Sand Attack, I can easily sweep through her team if she misses enough moves. Like always, the first 2 Geodudes go down to a few embers, and they of course get healed up a few times by a few potions. I get put into orange health because of some rock tombs, and then Nosepass comes out and I start sand attacking away. After setting up 6 of them, the Nosepass is completely blinded. So I then start hitting it with a few embers until she heals him up with another potion, so I go for a fire spin to do some chip damage. I then proceed to use ember a few more times until we eventually take down the Nosepass and win ourselves the first gym badge. And you know, first gym badge, first new Pokemon, and this one is going to be Mareep. I get it at level 6 and I name it Carl, just the best name for a sheep ever. Then it's time for another May fight, but of course my Torchic is way too high leveled for her, so we easily win this one. I just embered both of her Pokemon and eventually they just burned to death. After beating up May, I go to Dewford Town with the boat and enter Granite Cave to give the letter to Steven. He thanks us by giving us the TM for Steel Wing, and he tells us that we should go ahead and challenge Brawley. But while I was training up my Pokemon in the gym against the trainers, my Mareep evolves into a Fluffy, and this will be the final evolution that I will let it go to because Ampharos doesn't really look like a sheep to me. And then of course it's time to challenge Brawley, the fighting type user. He starts off with his Machop and I start off with my Fluffy. One Thunder Shock does a lot of damage and then he hits me with a Karate Chop, which triggers my static ability, so he's now paralyzed and another Thunder Shock is enough to take him out. Next up is Meditite, and as you may know, this thing only uses Focus Punch, so I just Thunder Shock it and electrocute it to death after using that a few times. Last up is of course Makuhita, so I go for another Thunder Shock, get the paralysis, and he uses Bulk Up. I get off one more Thunder Shock before he takes me out with a critical Vital Throw, so I have to finish it off with Polo. So I go into Polo, hit it with an Ember, and we get hit with a Vital Throw, which does a lot of damage, but he gets paralyzed twice, and then he heals him up with a super potion after I hit him with 2 more embers. Then I go for 2 more embers and a peck, and I finish off the Makuhita to get ourselves the Knuckle badge. So I go to Granite Cave, spawn in a Miltank, I capture it, and I name it Bella. With Bella on our team, we go ahead and challenge our 3rd rival fight. which is the hardest one in this game. Speedrunners really hate this one. Our first Pokemon is a Lombre, and I start off with Bella. Bella has the move Stomp, which has 65 power and has the chance to flinch, which is an amazing move, so only 3 of those take out the Lombre. Next up is Marshtomp, so I stay in and I get the best flinch luck by getting 2 flinches on my first 2 moves, and then I just kept on stomping and the Marshtomp didn't do enough damage, so my Bella wins. Last up is our Slugma, so I go into my fire type and peck it twice to take it out and win ourselves the 3rd rival fight. And next up is the pain in the ass, Watson. Just like always, this guy always gives me a hard time. How do I get past him easily? Please God, help. Anyway, most of his team really isn't that much of a problem until I get to his Manectric, because that thing has Howl, Shockwave and Quick Attack, which is a pretty good combo. Boosting his attack with Howl, then going for Quick Attack, always outspeeding my Pokemon, or going for a very hard hitting Shockwave, it's always a problem. Eventually, after grinding up my Pokemon up to level 24, I finally was able to beat him. Of course, with none other than Bella and her Stomp. With Watson out of the way, it's time to head to Meteor Falls, do a little bit of chit-chatting with Archie and the Team Magma members, and we head to the volcano, where we see Maxie for the first time. He tells us that he wants to steal my corn, and we can't let that happen, so we have to beat him up. His first Pokemon was a Mytiena, so I started off by going for a Rock Smash, which barely did any damage, so I opted to go for Stomp instead, got a lot of flinches, and eventually he healed up. So I went for Stomp a few times more, got even more flinches, and the Mytiena is down. Next up was a Zubat, so I went into Carl to take it down with a single Thunder Shock, and the last Pokemon was Camerupt. Turns out 2 of my 3 Pokemon are weak to ground type moves, so he took me out pretty easily. But next time we went back and we had another attempt. This time Bella had more than enough HP left to take him out with 2 stomps and win ourselves the battle and save our cornfield. Then as we head down from Mount Chimney, I found myself a Spoink, which I capture and name Bacon, because I just love bacon. Of course, after Mount Chimney there is always a gym battle with the hothead herself, Flannery. By this point my Spoink had already learned Psybeam and it took down the Numel with 2 of them after it hit itself in its confusion. Next up was her Slugma, so I went for a Psybeam, did about half health, and then Overheat scorched my pig and I ate it. Now her Camerupt came out, and of course this thing is always a problem, but I still had Bella and I just stomped it like 10 times after it healed up twice with a Hyper Potion, but eventually my Bella took it down. Last up was her Turtle, who tried to turn my Bella into a hamburger with some overheats, but we were too strong and too beefy, so we drank some milk, stomped it a few times, but eventually after getting it into red health, it finally turned me into a hamburger, so I ate my cow as well. But luckily we still had Carl left, who Thunder Shocked it, and we easily won ourselves the 4th gym badge. Of course this has to be 2 gym battles in a row, so we go to our dad who lives on his farm, so we go ahead and steal all of his crops. And of course there is no other way to do that than to beat him up. His first Pokemon is a Spinda, who hit a critical facade on my Spoink to take it out in a single hit. So I went into Carl, shockwaved it twice and I killed it. Next was Vigoroth, who paralyzed itself by touching me, so 2 shockwaves managed to take it down. Then his Linoon came out, so my cow stomped on it a few times and I milked my cow a few times, drank some milk. Eventually we did take it down with a lot of stomps and Hyper Potions later. And last was his Slacking, who went down the same way as the Linoon with a lot of milk and stomps. Then after getting the gym badge and getting the HM for Surf, I spawned in my next Pokemon, Murkrow, which I named Bernie. Of course, after clearing the Weather Institute, May had to come in our business again and try to buy my crops from me. I said no, but she didn't want to leave, so I had to beat her up. Lombre couldn't even withstand 2 pecks from my Bernie, so it went down quite easily. Next was a Slugma, so I went into my Bella, stomped it twice, and it was stuck in the ground. Marshtomp, sadly enough, has to go down too by some stomps because my Miltank is just too beefy and too strong. We then get the HM for Fly, and of course we have to beat up the flying type gym next. Her first Pokemon was a Swablu, which my Torchic took down with a lot of slashes after it healed up and used Perishong. I also learned the TM for Thunderbolt to Carl so that he would hit harder, so she went into her Pelipper and that didn't end well because Thunderbolt against a Pelipper is dead. Sadly enough, her Altaria came out next, which knew Earthquake, so I had to switch in my pig straight away. After I managed to hit it with a Thunderbolt, my pig then went ahead and used a lot of Psybeams until eventually the Altaria killed itself by hitting itself in its confusion. Next up was Eutropius, so I went into Burnett to hit it with a lot of pecks. Eventually I got it down into red health, but then she healed up with a Hyper Potion and my Burnett went down to an Aerial Ace. Poyo then used an Ember to take down the Tropius, and next up was her Skarmory, so I went for an Ember, did about half HP, but we got taken out by an Aerial Ace and a Steel Wing. Luckily enough, we still had Carl, so I went into him. She missed her Steel Wing and a Thunderbolt finished the job. I then spawned in my final team member, Tauros, and I named it Ferdinand after a movie that I saw about a bull that was named Ferdinand. It was a pretty good movie. We beat up May one last time with her really not that buffed up team. Her team really sucks in this game. Then, after beating her up, we go to Mount Pyre, talk with Archie, he takes the wrong orb, and we head on to the Team Magma hideout, where we of course find Maxie trying to awaken Groudon with again the wrong orb. Are you guys stupid? He starts off with my Diana like always, and sadly enough, my Ferdinand isn't strong enough to take him down yet. Maybe because he used Swagger, so I hit myself a lot of times, and eventually my Ferdinand went down. So I went into Carl to hit it with a Thunderbolt, but it wasn't enough, so he healed up. I went for a Shockwave, and then he bamboozled me by going into Camerupt. But then his Camerupt used Earthquake, so I bamboozled him by going into Murkrow. I then went for a Fly as he tried to hit me with a Rock Slide. He used Amnesia after that. Fly barely did any damage, so I went for Nightshade a few times. He missed a Rock Slide. He put me to 1 HP with another Rock Slide, but eventually my Nightshade took it down. My Tiana came back out again, so he used another Super Potion on him, and I got a critical Thunderbolt to take it out. Last up was this Crow Batman, so I stayed in, used the 2 Thunderbolts because I paralyzed it, and we win ourselves the battle against Maxie. After grilling some of my pigs in the volcano, I finally went out to surf to Mossdeep City, where I had to beat up the 2 gym leaders there, Tate and Liza, who like always were a little bit of a pain in the butt, so I had to try a few times, but it wasn't that hard. Most of the time I just abused the dark typing of my Murkrow because Lunatone couldn't even hit it, and Claydol's Earthquake also wouldn't work on Murkrow, so without Murkrow this would have been way harder. After that I remembered that I could catch a Cacnea, so I went ahead and captured that, and I named it Tim. After winning the double battle with Steven at the Rocket Space Center, I went down to the Seafloor Cavern to meet Archie there and see that he uses the wrong orb on Kyogre too. Damn, these people will never learn. So I start off with Bernie against his Mytiana. I use Nightshade a couple of times after he uses a Super Potion. I then get it down into red health, but he takes me down with a takedown. I then switch in Carl, but we get hit by another takedown and the Mytiana takes himself out. Next up is Crowman, who hits me with a wing attack and my static ability kicks in, so next time I can take him out with a Thunderbolt. Last up is Sharpedo, who easily takes me down with a single slash. So I go into Bella, hit it with a Stomp as he swaggers me. Luckily next turn we break through the confusion and hit him once to take him out, and we win against Archie. Kyogre then shoots off to my farm where he steals all of my chickens. We then have a little bit of a talk with Maxie, Archie and Steven, and I fly to Setupala City where I see that the 2 giants are fighting over my crops. Luckily I called up on the power of snakes to bite them and poison them and keep my crops safe. And of course, after that little incident, I have to beat my final gym leader, Juan. His first Pokemon is a Luvdisc, who went down to 2 strengths by my Tauros. Next up is Wishcash, so I strengthed him twice, but then he healed up, hit me with an Earthquake, and 3 more strengths took it down. Cilia was next, and I was lucky enough that strength did enough damage to take it down in 2 single hits, even though that we got hit with a few water pulses. Crawdon then came out. I managed to do some chip damage with strength, but then we got taken out, so I had to go into Carl. We then got hit with a crab hammer, but a thunderbolt was enough to take down the Crawdon. And last up was his stupid ass Kingdra, who always gives me trouble. Of course, he starts off by setting up a few double teams. After I managed to hit him with 2 thunderbolts, he then took me out with an ice beam. I then switched in Bernie to try and outspeed him with a fly, but he was faster and an ice beam took me down. Bella was next. I managed to stomp it twice to get into red health, but then he healed up, so I had to stomp a few more times. Eventually I did about half of his HP, but then he took me down with a water pulse. So then I went into Grumpig, confused it with a Confuse Ray, then I got it down into red health, but he healed up with rest, so I used Psychic a load of times until he snapped out of his confusion, confused him again, he healed up again with rest, but eventually I got a special defense drop which won me the game by hitting it with 2 more Psychics. Of course, now we can head on to Victory Road, where we have to fight Wally one last time. His first Pokemon is an Altaria, who my Tauros easily takes down with 3 strengths after we get hit with 2 Dragon Breaths and get paralyzed. Next up is Delcatty, but because we're paralyzed, our Facade is going to do more damage, but it doesn't quite one-shot. So Wally heals him up, I get him back down into red health, but we get taken out next turn. So I then go into Bernie to defeat the Delcatty with a feint attack. Next up is Magneton, so I go into my Sheep, hit it with 2 Thunderbolts, but then we get taken out by a Tri-Attack. Bacon then comes out, and I finish it off with a Psychic and a Psybeam. His Roselia then comes out, which I take down with a Psychic and a Psybeam very easily. Last up is his Gardevoir, which can't even hit my Murkrow, so even though he uses double team, feint attack can never miss, and we take him down with 3 of those. And then, you know, after clearing Victory Road, it's time for the Elite Four, but we don't even stand a chance against Sydney because my team is barely even level 40. So I go back to Mobile City, which is my normal grinding spot. I grind up against all of the trainers there because you can rematch them from time to time. After getting my full team to around level 45, I can finally head back to the Pokemon League. This time, Carl can easily take out Sydney's Mightyena with 2 Thunderbolts. Next up is Shiftry, so I go into Polo and hit it with 2 flamethrowers to take it out. Next up is Absol, and after using Body Slam 3 times, Absol is finally dead. Next up is Cacturne, so I decide to stay in, hit it with a Body Slam, but he Leech Seeds us. I then proceed to hit it with 2 more Body Slams as he's paralyzed, so we easily take him down. Last up is his Crawdon, and I start off by getting a critical Facade, he then heals up with a full Restore and 2 more Thrashes finish it off to win ourselves the first Elite Four member battle. After that, it was of course time for Phoebe, but her Dusclops, like always, is a pain in the ass. But eventually, after trying enough times, I got a strategy to beat her. Her first Pokemon, Dusclops, is a bit of a hard one, so I start off by confusing it, and I then set up 2 Calm Minds and go for a Psychic, but it isn't enough, so I set up another Calm Mind, confuse them again, and go for another Psychic to take him out in 1 hit. Next up is Burnett, who I one-shot with a Psychic, but next up is another Burnett who outsped me, went for Shadow Ball, and actually one-shots me. So I then go into Murkrow to hit it with a feint attack, but it isn't enough, so he also gets taken out. So I then go into Tauros to finish that thing off with an Earthquake. Next up is the Pokemon without a weakness, so I start off with a hard-hitting Earthquake and then go for a Rock Tomb to make sure he doesn't heal, but I got a critical hit, so she healed anyway. I then proceeded to hit it with a few more Rock Tombs and Earthquakes to take it out. Last up was a Dusclops, so I went into Carl to paralyze it with a Thunder Wave, and then we got taken out by an Earthquake. So I switched to my Torchic, and I managed to get off 1 Flamethrower because then he took me out with another Earthquake. And this was one of the most annoying parts ever. I had to spam Surf, but because the Dusclops had pressure, I always got drained by 2 PP, which caused my Surf to run out very quickly and the rest of my moves couldn't hit it, so I had to use Milk Drink, Rock Smash until I could use Struggle. But luckily enough, I got taken out before that and I couldn't switch into Tauros because it had not enough health to live an attack. Eventually my Miltank did go down and I switched in my Tauros to finish the job in an earthquake. This was a close one. Next up was of course the ice type user Glacier, so I started off with my Grumpig and confused raid her first Pokemon Celio. Then I proceeded to set up some Calm Minds, exactly 3 of them, so that I could one-shot the Celio with a single Psychic. Next up was Glalie, who set up a stupid light screen so my Psychic does less damage, but I still managed to take him out with 2 of them. Then next up was another Glalie who sadly enough took me down with a Shadow Ball. I then switched in Poyo to try and take it out, but 2 flamethrowers did only half of his health, and then she took me down with a Shadow Ball. So I switched in Ferdinand to finish it off with a Thrash. Now her second Celio came out, who Carl easily took down with 2 Thunderbolts after we got hit with a Blizzard and an Attract. And last up was her Walrein, so I switched into my Murkrow, hit it with a Nightshade, but we got taken out by a single Surf. So then I had to go into Carl. I tried to go for a Thunderbolt, but he hit me with a Body Slam and killed me. But I got my static ability, so Walrein is now paralyzed. So then I switched in Ferdinand, hit it with a Rock Tomb, and then 2 Thrashes to take it down and win ourselves the battle. And next up was of course the final Elite 4 member Drake, who specializes in Dragon types. His first Pokemon is a Shelgon. So I start off with my Pig, and I set up a Calm Mind because he goes for a Protect, and I Confuse Ray it, and I set up 2 more Calm Minds as we get hit with a Rock Tomb, and then a single Psychic takes out the Shelgon. His Flygon then came out, so 1 single Psychic did take it out, but we got hit with a hard-hitting Earthquake. Next up was his Salaman, so I had to switch out into Fluffy and hit it with a Thunder because he couldn't one-shot me and he got paralyzed. And I hit it with another Thunder, but then we got taken out by a Rock Slide. I then switched in Bernie as we do some chip damage with Feint Attack, but then we get taken out by a Rock Slide. So then I switched in my Ferdinand, who took down the Salamence with a Thrash. So then his Altaria came out. I decided to stay in. I managed to hit it with 2 Thrashes, but then I had to switch out into Poyo as he healed up. I tried to go for a Slash, but we got taken out by a single Double Edge. Then I went back into Ferdinand to hit it with 2 Thrashes to take down the Altaria. And last up was his Kingdra. So I start off by hitting it with a Body Slam, and I got the Paralysis, so another Body Slam, and it is in half health. He wastes his turn by going for Dragon Dance, and I get a critical Body Slam to win ourselves the battle. Now last but not least is Wallace, and oh boy was I frustrated after I finally won this battle. It took me about 2 hours of attempts because I did not want to grind up my Pokemon anymore. I felt like it was possible with this team at this level, but Grumpig really had to carry me with Double Team and Calm Mind. I know, another double team strategy, kinda cheesy, but it really does help me without having to overlevel this much, even though overleveling probably would have saved me time. Eventually I did get the RNG that I needed to win this battle, and of course his first Pokemon is a Wailord. So I started off by confusing it with a Confuse Ray, and then I managed to set up my 6 double teams as he only hit me with a single Double Edge. Then I set up 4 Calm Minds while getting hit with a Water Spout, and I was only left with 3 HP. But after I set up those 4 Calm Minds, I did take down the Wailord with a single Psychic. Next up was the Tentacruel, who also went down to a single Psychic as he missed his Hydro Pump. And Ludicolo hung on with literally 1 HP, but after healing him up 2 times, we did take him out in 1 hit with Psychic. We got a critical Psychic on Wishcash to take it out in 1 hit as well. We got another crit on Gyarados to take it down in a single hit as well. And last up was Milotic, but I just ran out of Psychic, so after hitting it with 1, we got taken out. So I went into Carl to hopefully take it down with a single Thunder, but it wasn't enough, and I paralyzed it, so he healed up, but I did go for a Thunder Wave to get off another attack. 1 more Thunder, it is almost into orange health, but we got taken out by a Surf. So then I switched in Bernie to do a little bit more strip damage with Nightshade, but we got one shot by an Ice Beam, so I had to switch in Ferdinand. So then I just kept on thrashing, but it didn't do enough damage, and eventually she used Recover and then used a full Restore, but my Bull managed to get it down into orange health before he got taken out by a Surf. So then I switched in Bella, it outsped and hit it with a Body Slam to win ourselves the battle, and we became champions as a farmer. But the run of course doesn't end here. I still have to beat up Steven. And for this fight, I decided to grind up my entire team up to level 69. Nice. He of course starts off with his Skarmory like always, and I start off with Poyo, who manages to take it out with 2 flamethrowers. I think this is the first thing Poyo has done in ages. Next up is his Metagross, so I go into my Ferdinand to take it down with 3 Earthquakes because he missed his first Meteor Mash, otherwise my Ferdinand would have died. Next up was Claydol, so I switched in my Bella and body slammed it until he used Reflect. Then I had to spam Milk Drink until the Reflect was gone so that I could take him out with another body slam. Next up was his Aggron, so I had to stay in and I hit it with 2 Surfs as he hit me with a Solar Beam, but then he kept on healing with full restores as I got him into red health, but eventually I did get the crit and the Surf took him out. Next up is Glalie, who always is a pain in the butt, so I switched into Carl, Thunder Waved it, and then I started hitting it with Thunders and Thunderbolts until it went down into half health, and then Carl went down to an Ancient Power. So then I switched in Bacon, went for a Psychic, but it didn't do enough, so he healed up. I then hit it with 2 more Psychics, set up a Calm Mind, and 2 more Psychics, finally finished off the Glalie as my Grumpig was left with a little bit of HP. Last up was Armaldo, so I switched in Ferdinand to hit it with a Rock Tomb, lower his speed, but we got taken out. So then I went into Poyo to hit it with a Flamethrower, but we also got taken out by 1 Ancient Power. Then I had to switch in Bella, hit it with a Surf, but then he almost took me out, so I used Milk Drink, but his stats got buffed, so then I had to go for a Surf, which took it out, and we won against Steven as a farmer. This was an amazing challenge with amazing Pokemon that really are pretty underrated. Tauros and Miltank are amazing, just like Murkrow, which isn't really half bad. I was also pretty surprised by Grumpig because I had really never used him before. Now, would I recommend doing this challenge? Absolutely. These Pokemon are amazing to work with. Maybe do it in another game where there are more farm Pokemon available, but this one was amazing. And as last, I just want to do a quick announcement. I will be starting a live series on Pokemon Insurgents later this week. The announcement that I made on Twitter is right here. I also made some art, so if you want to know more about me and about upcoming events, definitely follow me on there. And now I just want to thank my Patreon supporter, Mickey Googla, and that was that for this video. Like always people, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm Zwigo, and I'll see you guys next time.